Call it Park Bubba Sparks.
Booty, 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 rockin' everywhere. Booty, 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 rockin' everywhere. Booty, booty.
What's up, YouTube? It's Desi and I'm back with another video, y'all. So in this video, I'm basically going to talk about what was my biggest fears as far as for externship and also for medical assistant schooling. So yeah, y'all, this video was requested by your girl at goldenpink22. She always reaches out to me on Instagram. Shout out to her, by the way, with her medical assistant journey. I love getting these requested videos because it's able to help you guys as far as for finding out more information that you're looking to know. And I'm gonna just pull this up front and just like, you know, moving forward with a lot of things. So definitely I wanted to talk about with this video because at the end of the day, y'all, I love talking about my experience with medical assistant schooling and also as far as for externship as well, just to kind of get y'all prepared as far as for what to expect. And for anybody that's starting their externship and medical assistant journey, praying that everything go good for you. I'm hoping that you got your little packet ready for your stethoscope and your blood pressure cuff. And so yeah, let's get right into it. So I definitely have to say one of my biggest fears when I first started medical assistant school would have to be failing the NCCT, y'all. Like, when I tell you, when I got this and I was only 2 points away, I was like, man. But either way it go, man, like I said, this is how it's gonna look for the NCCT when you end up passing the test and whatnot. It's gonna have the pass score and the fail score. But definitely when I first started medical assistant school, I was just like, man, I already know I'm gonna pass this test, you know what I'm saying? As you start to get, you know, the paperwork and stuff like that, and like I was getting good scores and stuff as far as for like this classwork that we had to do and everything like that. But when it comes to the test, like I said, I'm a good test taker if you get right to the point. But if you like, if it's tests where it has like a lot of scenarios or it has like where you have to pick multiple answers and stuff like that, I'm not so good on that. Like, man, like in high school, I used to be the key man. I used to be helping a lot of people out. But as I got into medical assistant schooling, like it was still the same. But I just felt like with the test, it was a lot more front office questions than back end questions. And I'm like so used to like clinical things. Like I love blood work or EKGs and stuff like that. I'm not so more good on like medical office procedure. All right, so and another thing, YouTube, to keep in mind as far as for the NCT, and when like taking the test, your school is gonna update you as far as for letting you know like how many people is like gonna be with like the passing rate and stuff like that. And as far as for this college, I felt like the passing rate was a little bit low. Like it was either to the point where either people will pass the first time or people will pass like the second time go around, but the majority the second time was like mostly it. I would say like with our graduating class, it was a total of about 5 girls that passed. It was my friend Danielle, my friend Alyssa, Ashley, Christine, and Adasia. They all passed out as far as out of all our class. But for the most part, I mean, it's not so bad. I second guess myself a lot, so that's one thing to keep in mind. But I'm gonna go ahead and tell you guys the second thing that I had, like that was one of my biggest fears as far as for medical assistant school and externship. So for most people, this may not be as big for you if you're not like really a people person, but I definitely would say making friends was kind of one of my biggest fears as well too, because at the end of the day, okay, so like I had already graduated high school and stuff like that, and that's just like people already done knew that was like for like either 4 years or more. And so with the college that I went to, it was like in Orange Park, and it was like I don't really too much know nobody in that area. So I was like thinking like in my head, like, you know, what if these girls don't like me? You know what I'm saying? What if like it was just certain stuff that was just running through my mind. So at the end of the day, I mean, it was perfect. Like I had my little crew of friends that I was like, you know, hanging with and whatnot. And I enjoyed all the professors there and stuff like that. So what turned out to be my biggest fear started really being like something that wasn't really as major. Like, you know, as you start to see the bigger picture, and once you complete like medical assistant school, you'll start to see like, hey, it's not really that bad or something like that. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Like I even still got like videos and funny like pictures and stuff of like when we used to like go on lunch break and stuff like that, and just used to be like clowning y'all. Like,
hey, why would you gonna walk in the I remember about that seat. Hey, I'm gonna be like,
like those were like the best times ever. And one thing I can say about medical assistant school, like make sure that you stay focused, don't like get sidetracked on a lot of things. Like I was young and dumb with a lot of things, so it was like I wasn't really taking it as serious as I should have took it. But at the end of the day, like when going back to school for either nursing or whatnot, I know to take it a lot more serious and not to do the same mistakes that I was doing when I had medical assistant school. But making friends was definitely a plus after a while. But you don't have to make friends as you as you progress within like medical assistant school, because I know a lot of people like they either like to stay to themselves or they'll just like to, you know, go in there, do what they need to do as far as for learning the material and just go home and stuff like that. But I feel like when you progress and make friends, you can kind of do like group chats and stuff where you guys can kind of discuss the work. It'll be either times where I'll miss a day of school and then, you know, they'll keep me updated in the group chat or something as far as for, hey, we have a pop quiz or something like that tomorrow or something. So, you know, those are good things to kind of keep in mind. Another fear that I had as far as for medical assistant school, what I would say is failing classes. I never really had this type of issue as far as for like medical assistant school. For the most part, I was either AB, honor roll student or whatnot. If anything, I would try to get all A's, but you gotta have good attendance and all that stuff like that, and that's where president's list pretty much comes in. But I was fine with making dean's list. I made it at least like 2 or 3 times, so that's definitely good. But as far as with failing class, I didn't want to be in that percentage, because at the end of the day, like the materials that they're giving you is going to be used in a real life scenario. So I definitely think that was good. And you know, basically whatever grades you make and whatever you basically achieve, that's going to look good as far as for your externship. So if you like failing your classes and stuff like that, have a low GPA, pretty much nobody's going to pretty much want to hire you on as far as for your externship or internship. So those are the type of things you want to keep in mind. And I mean, it wasn't really like a major like big fear for me, but at the same time I was like, man, what if some of this material is hard? Like with the first courses that we were doing, like with introduction to health professions, when we were learning about the meaning of the prefix and suffixes as far as for the medical terminology words and whatnot, that was pretty easy. But as we start to get into the anatomy physiology class, like I like learning about that subject, but it was just the teacher we had, I felt like wasn't really like teaching as well. So that kind of reflected on everything. That was like throughout my whole time being at Ford's College, that was my first time making a C. So I didn't too much like that. So technically to me a C is like, it's average, but to me that's failing, because I'm used to like A's and B's. But you know, those are just the type of things to keep in mind. Like you want to make sure you keep your grades up, get as many accomplishments as you can as far as for president's list and dean's list. That way failing or any grades or anything like that won't be one of your biggest fears, as long as you stay on top of everything. Alright, and so the last thing that I felt like was like my biggest fear, this is dealing with externship, not more so medical assistant school. So my biggest fear with externship was basically either doing things wrong or 2, not learning things the right way. Okay, so like one thing one of our professors used to say, his name was like Mr. Tony, we'll call him Mr. Tony, but he would always tell us like what you learn in school will be definitely different in real life. And I never really like understood what he was saying that type of way. So like say for instance in school, we're like learning to draw blood while sitting in a chair. You'll have the chair where they have the little armrest where you can kind of like hold your arm out and stuff like that. And then as I got into like my externship for UF, it was like I noticed a difference. So it's not going to be all the time where you're going to draw blood where either the patient either be sitting down. Sometimes you could probably have to draw blood when they're laying down. It all depends. And I done seen it and I'm just like, oh, okay, that's what he probably mean. And then on top of that, they do things differently. Like say for instance when taking the EKG, or even the way they have like where you draw blood and stuff like that, the way how we would learn it is it'll be a certain way, the way the school would have us teach, but it will be like the safer way how we're learning it in school. But then in real life, they're just gonna show you the way to kind of get the job done, basically. So that's the easier way to kind of explain it. So that's one thing that I kind of like, you know, I didn't too much like, because I'm like, man, we learning one thing in school and then we're learning a different thing in real life, and it was different. And as far as what like externship, I didn't want to do things the wrong way, because at the end of the day, okay, so they teach us all this in school, and then at the end of the day, once you get into the real life, you are being taught the way that the facility wants you to do things. So making sure you do everything right, because it doesn't really too much matter what the school teach you, because at the end of the day, you have to follow by their procedures of doing things. So if that makes sense. Like, that was just like a little off to me, because at the end of the day, everybody procedure is different, everybody way of doing things is different. In the externship field, like, a lot of girls treat you differently. Like, with you being the new upcoming medical assistant, you have old medical assistants who feel like you're probably trying to take their position. And then on top of that, you never know if a doctor going to give you a chance, because like, if you watch some of my previous videos, I'll talk about how my externship went for me. And a lot of the doctors, like, if they're so used to working with a certain amount of medical assistants, they don't give you a chance. So everybody externship and internship experience is different, but as far as for mine, like, that's pretty much on how mine's went. So for the most part, those are my like biggest fears as far as for medical assistant school. I mean, with being in the field now, as far as for a medical assistant, I don't really too much have no fear with anything, because I work the way how the doctor wants me to work with things now. I'm so immune to how he wants me to do things now. So with you getting as much experience as you can in the medical field, you'll eventually see what you're immune to and what you adapt to the most. So that's pretty much the experience. So if y'all have any questions or anything like that, be sure to comment below. Don't forget to like this video, and don't forget to subscribe. And at the girl at Golden Pink 22, hopefully this answers your question as far as for what was my biggest fears as far as for externship and medical assistant schooling. It's a good experience, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you just pay attention to a lot of things and don't let your biggest fears affect your work on everything. Like, at the end of the day, you'll learn from it, and that's just how it's gonna go.